Welcome back to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in Russia in the past 24 hours. The biggest story today is a narrow diplomatic opening in the Black Sea that Moscow has publicly pushed back. Ukraine has offered Russia a reciprocal halt to attacks on civilian vessels and other civilian targets there. The message went through a third party. Russia then dismissed the idea of a partial ceasefire, saying there were no grounds for measures that could benefit Ukraine, while denying receipt of a formal proposal from Turkey. There is no deal or acknowledged negotiating text. The offer still matters because both sides have something valuable to protect. Ukraine's grain exports are down 76% year-on-year this month as Russian attacks squeeze ports and shipping. Russia has its own exposure after Ukraine forced operations to stop at grain terminals in Novorossiysk. Turkey has called for a moratorium as well. The logic is straightforward. Each side can keep fighting military targets while reducing the risk to commercial ships, port workers, and global food supply. The hard part will be defining a civilian target. Russia says facilities at Ismail support Western weapons deliveries. Ukraine says attacks on ports and commercial shipping are choking ordinary exports. A serious arrangement would need lists of protected vessels, a notification channel, and a way to investigate violations. Without those rules, either side can call a disputed target military and declare itself compliant. The first real signal will be whether a written text or third-party pressure moves Moscow beyond its public rejection and into the mechanics. That diplomatic possibility is emerging because Ukraine has created more reciprocal vulnerability. Kyiv is no longer only trying to defend its own ports. It is reaching refineries and export hubs deep inside Russia. Drones hit the Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat complex in Bashkortostan, roughly 1,300 kilometers from Ukraine, and started a fire. It was the fourth reported attack on Russian energy infrastructure in 3 days. Another drone attack triggered a fire at Ust-Luga, the major Baltic export port. Russian officials said they quickly cleared the effects, but the pattern matters more than a single damage report. Every distant target forces Russia to move air defenses, protect a wider map, manage repairs, and absorb irregular outages. The Orsk refinery may need months of work, partly because specialized replacement equipment is harder to obtain under sanctions. Ukraine is trying to make the rear feel expensive. It does not need to destroy every refinery to create pressure. Disrupted schedules, domestic fuel shortages, repair delays, and uncertainty around export throughput can all add up. The best scoreboard here is not social media video. It is sustained processing volume, port loading rates, and how often facilities have to stop. There was also a more dangerous regional moment over Latvia. An Italian Eurofighter operating under NATO command shot down a drone inside Latvian airspace near Rugagi, around 35 kilometers from the Russian border. Aircraft based in Lithuania and Estonia scrambled, and Finland temporarily restricted movement in parts of the Baltic Sea. The drone's origin had not been established when this brief was completed. That point needs to stay attached to the story. The incident happened during heavy Ukrainian attacks on Russian Baltic infrastructure, but the region has also seen Russian incursions, navigational interference, and debris events. NATO moved from tracking an airspace violation to taking kinetic action. Debris and flight path analysis will determine whether this remains a safety incident or grows into a political confrontation. Meanwhile, Russia is still imposing costs across Ukraine. A strike hit the Danube port of Ismail and prompted Romania to scramble aircraft. Ukraine is again asking for more Patriot interceptors, while Russian attacks continue to hit population centers, trains, ports, and industry. A mother and her child were killed in Sumy region, and civilian casualties have been rising. This is the brutal allocation problem for Kyiv. Protect cities, power, ports, factories, and military sites with a limited stock of high-end defenses. The economic pressure is coming from another direction, too. New European Union steel rules sharply reduce Ukraine's duty-free quota and apply a 50% tariff above it. Steel accounts for about 15% of Ukrainian exports, and roughly 4/5 of production goes to Europe. Industry estimates say the change could cost $1.2 billion in export earnings and take 0.6% off gross domestic product. That is a serious strategic contradiction. Europe wants Ukraine to sustain its economy and prepare for reconstruction, but its trade defenses could weaken a sector that supports both. Russian attacks are already disrupting plants and transport. A recent strike killed 7 workers and temporarily shut Zaporizhzhal. If Brussels does not create a tailored quota, waiver, or support package, a policy designed to protect European producers may deepen Ukraine's wartime industrial strain. Inside Russia, the state is presenting all of this through a security frame. Russian coverage describes Ismail's rail station and tugboats as military logistics, not civilian commerce. It emphasizes that no formal Black Sea offer has arrived and portrays partial restraint as a one-sided benefit for Ukraine. It also casts European action against Russia's shadow fleet as lawless pressure, while arrests and the investigation into a bombing in Sevastopol are shown as proof that sabotage is externally directed but under control. That messaging leaves out some inconvenient pieces. It gives little space to refinery disruptions, the vulnerability of major export hubs, or organized anti-war activity. A Russian court has sentenced a man to 23 years for allegedly supplying Poland with weapons and missile information. In Crimea, a bomb killed a Russian officer described as a former Ukrainian naval commander who defected in 2014. And the leader of the sidelined Yabloko party says he will continue opposing the war and challenge his party's exclusion from elections. The strategic picture today is a contest over reciprocal pain. Ukraine is offering limited maritime restraint from a position of greater reach, while Russia has rejected the concept publicly and is trying to preserve its advantage through sustained air pressure and tighter domestic control. Watch 3 things next: whether a written Black Sea text changes Moscow's position, whether Russian refinery and port throughput actually falls, and whether Latvia can attribute the drone. Those answers will tell us whether today's events reduce risk, redistribute it, or open another lane of escalation. That's it for today's tour through the world's least relaxing headlines. If this was useful, leave a review or comment. For the deeper dive, head to restrictedhandling.substack.com. Stay sharp.